Have you ever had a coin lying around that could change your life? Now imagine this: you reach into an old box, maybe in the attic or tucked inside a drawer, and you pull out a single coin. It looks ordinary, but what if I told you that little piece of metal might be worth over $300,000 or even more? In today's video, we're diving into 4 jaw-dropping coins that collectors are silently chasing down. These aren't your everyday pocket change, these are steel penny treasures hiding in plain sight. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might just be checking your change jar with a magnifying glass. Don't forget to subscribe if you love rare coins and real-life treasure stories. You don't want to miss what's coming next. First up, this one's going to shock you. We're looking at a 1/9 for 3D Lincoln wheat penny, but not just any penny. This one has a black shade on both sides, and that might seem strange at first glance, but trust me, this dark color could mean big money. Let's rewind the clock for just a second. During World War II, copper was so critical for the war effort that in 1943, the US Mint made pennies out of zinc-coated steel instead. These coins had a bright, silvery appearance, at least when they were brand new. But over time, many of them began to oxidize, especially if they weren't carefully stored. That's what gives some of these coins that haunting, blackened shade. And here's where it gets crazy. Most people think those black coins are just old, worn-out junk. But the truth is, some of these 1943 steel cents, especially the ones minted in Denver, like this 1/9 for 3D, are worth a small fortune when they have the right mix of rarity and error. And this one has something really special going on. Collectors have been paying tens of thousands of dollars for coins that look just like this. Coins with unusual toning, strange coloration, and especially ones that still show clear details underneath that black surface. Now, take a closer look. On this coin, even though the surface has that dark tone, the wheat stalks on the reverse are still sharp. And if you can see the D mint mark under the date, that's a very good sign. But here's where things get wild. If this coin also has even a minor die break, double die, or misstrike, the value can skyrocket. One known 1/9 for 3D steel penny, with a striking error and unusual toning, was sold for over $180,000 in a private auction. And that wasn't even in perfect condition. In circulated condition, a black-toned 1/9 for 3D like this might still sell for $1,500 to $5,000, depending on how much detail is visible and whether it still has eye appeal to collectors. In uncirculated condition, with full mint luster under that black surface, you could be looking at $15,000 to $45,000 or more, especially if certified by a grading service like PCGs or NGC. But here's the kicker. If this coin turns out to be one of the extremely rare off-metal errors where a steel penny was struck on a leftover copper planchet by mistake, the value explodes. We're talking $300,000 to $1.7 million in recent private sales. Yes, million. That's not a typo. So the next time you see a dark-colored 1/9 for 3D penny that looks ruined, stop. Look closer. That black shade might not be damage. It might be your retirement plan. And that's just the beginning. Next up, this one might look like junk, but don't be fooled. It's a 1/9 for 3D Lincoln wheat penny, and yeah, it's in bad condition. Scratches, worn edges, maybe even some rust or discoloration. At first glance, most people would toss it aside without a second thought. But what if I told you, even in this rough shape, this coin could still be worth thousands? Let's break it down. In 1943, the US Mint made a big change. Because copper was needed for the war, they switched to steel pennies coated in zinc. These coins were supposed to be temporary, and while over 1 billion were struck, most didn't survive the decades very well. The steel core made them very prone to rust, especially if exposed to moisture. That's why so many 1943 steel pennies like this one look rough today. But here's the twist. Even in bad condition, a 1/9 for 3D penny could be very valuable if it has something collectors crave, like a rare error, or if it's struck on the wrong metal. And here's where things get seriously exciting. One known error for the 1/9 for 3D is when it was accidentally struck on a bronze planchet, the copper alloy used in 1942. These mistakes happened when a leftover blank got stuck in the minting machine. Guess how much one of those sold for? In poor condition, barely readable, a 1943D bronze penny still sold for $112,500. Let that sink in. Now, back to our beat-up coin here. It may not be winning any beauty contests, but if it has even a whisper of a wrong metal error, or if it's magnetic when it shouldn't be, or not magnetic when it should be, it could be hiding a serious payday. Even a simple double die error, where the letters or date appear slightly doubled, can make a destroyed-looking coin shoot up $8,000 to $15,000, just for the error alone, and collectors love these underdog coins. Why? Because it feels like discovering treasure in the trash. It's exciting, it's rare, and it's real history, right in your hand, even in average circulated condition, without any error. A 1943D still sells for $20 to $75, but with even minor rarity or error, that number can leap into the thousands. And here's a crazy detail most people miss. Some of these bad condition 1943Ds were actually part of emergency wartime minting batches, made in a rush, sometimes with misaligned dies or off-center strikes. Collectors hunt for these, so if your 1943D penny looks bad, don't toss it, run a magnet over it, look closely under a light, check the edges, the date, and that tiny D mint mark below the year. If anything looks strange, this might be the kind of bad coin that's actually really, really good. 2 coins down, and we're just heating up. If you're enjoying this hunt for hidden treasure, hit that subscribe button, it helps us keep bringing you the stories most people never hear, because the next coin might just blow your mind. Moving on, and this one's a real sleeper. At first glance, it looks like just another old, beat-up penny, scratched, discolored, maybe even a little rusty. But look closer, this is a 1943 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark. And that little detail changes everything. Now remember, in 1943, pennies weren't made of copper, they were made of steel, coated with zinc, because copper was needed for World War II ammunition. Over 1 billion of these were struck, and most came out of Philadelphia, which didn't put a mint mark on its coins. So what makes this rough-looking 1943 penny so special? Well, some of them weren't made out of steel at all. Let that sink in. A few incredibly rare 1943 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets, bronze blanks from 1942 that were never supposed to be used again. They somehow slipped through, got struck, and entered circulation unnoticed. Today, those mistakes are some of the most valuable coins in US history. One of them, a 1943 copper penny with no mint mark, was discovered by a 14-year-old kid in the 1950s. He sold it for $40,000. In 2019, a nearly identical one sold at auction for $204,000. And get this, another one, verified authentic, in rough shape, sold for over $372,000. Yes, nearly 400 grand, for a penny that looked like it had been through the washing machine. Now, imagine holding a coin that looks just like this in your hand. It's discolored, the surface is beat up, the wheat stalks on the back are worn down. Most people would call it garbage. But if it's copper instead of steel, if it's not magnetic when it should be, that could be the single most important penny you've ever touched. Even more mind-blowing, some 1943 copper pennies were struck slightly off-center, or with weak dies that caused faint lettering. That's a double jackpot. Rare metal and rare strike. These error coins, they're the holy grail for collectors, and most of them were found in pocket change, or tossed in a jar for decades, before someone finally recognized what they had. Here's a quick test you can do right now. Grab a small magnet and hover it over your 1943 penny. If it sticks, it's steel, and probably worth between $10 to $60 in worn condition. Maybe more if there's a small error. But if it doesn't stick, your heart might skip a beat, because that means it's not steel. It might be copper, and that means your dirty, worn-out little coin could be worth more than a Lamborghini, even in poor condition. these copper 1943 cents have sold for six figures. Why? Because there are so few of them, and every collector in the world wants one. So never overlook the ugly coins. Sometimes the rarest treasures don't shine. Sometimes they're hidden under decades of wear, waiting for someone smart enough to take a second look. And the next coin might just be the most shocking one yet. And finally, don't blink, because this last one could be the most shocking of them all. We've got another 1943 Lincoln wheat penny in bad condition. It's rough, it's worn down, the date's barely visible, there's corrosion, maybe even a little green spotting around the edges. Most people wouldn't give this coin a second look, but they should, because this ordinary looking penny might just be worth over $1 million. Let's talk about why. You already know that in 1943, the US Mint produced steel pennies, a temporary change to save copper for wartime ammunition. But what very few people know is that errors weren't limited to copper planchets. Some of the most valuable 1943 coins were struck on completely wrong planchets, blanks meant for foreign coins, like silver coins from other countries, or even US dimes and nickels. Yes, that actually happened. The Mint was producing coins for other nations during the war, and sometimes, just sometimes, the wrong metal slipped into the wrong machine. A 1943 penny struck on a silver dime blank. That's a six-figure mistake. One known specimen sold for $216,000, and it wasn't even in good condition. But it gets even crazier. One 1943 penny was struck on a bronze planchet from the Philippines, which the US Mint was helping to produce at the time. Only a few of these are known to exist. And when one surfaced in bad condition, dull, scratched, almost forgotten, it still sold for a jaw-dropping $648,750 at auction. That's the power of Mint-era rarity. And that means this rough old 1943 penny in your hand, sitting at the bottom of an old coffee can, could be more than a curiosity. It could be retirement money. Look for signs that the coin was struck on the wrong planchet. Is it thinner than usual? Lighter? Maybe it has a strange ringing sound when dropped on a table. Or the color just feels off. All of those are red flags. And red flags collectors love. And here's something wild. Some 1943 pennies have also been discovered with ray-punched mint marks, where the D or S was accidentally struck twice in slightly different positions. Even in terrible condition, these can be worth $5,000 to $25,000, depending on severity. Another insane error? The 1943 Cud error, where a chunk of the die breaks off and leaves a big raised blob on the surface of the coin. One of these, in poor condition, sold for over $18,000. What are we looking at here? A scratched up, rusted, no mint mark 1943 penny. Maybe, or maybe it's a historic mistake. A 1 in a million error that slipped through the chaos of a wartime mint and ended up right in front of you. Think about that for a second. A tiny accident, made over 80 years ago, still sitting quietly in circulation, forgotten, overlooked, and now may be found. This is why coin collectors are obsessed with 1943. Not because they're rare in number, but because the rare ones hide in plain sight. So before you toss that ugly little coin aside, ask yourself one question. What if this is the one?